Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new chapter of Old Man Brad. Whether you are new to the show or returning for another chapter, thank you so much for giving this little horror podcast a listen. And if you love the show, drop me a review over on your favorite podcast app, or you can become a patron over at patreon.com/oldmanbrad. This week, I have another Screambox exclusive for you all. I'll be giving some spoiler-free thoughts on the new film Creeping Death, and I also have an interview with the writer, director, and star of the film, Matt Sampere. Can't wait for you to hear it. But before we jump into that, you know what week it is? The week this comes out, it is Horror Hound Week. And if you're in Cincinnati, come out to the Horror Hound Weekend convention. It is an absolute blast. I will be there all weekend. I'll be hosting a few of the indie filmmaker Q&As as part of the Film Fest. There's some great movies for you to check out. Great guests, great everything. Look for Old Man Brad. I will be there all weekend. We'll love to connect with some people and just have an absolute good old time. All right, let's move into all things Creeping Death.
What is up, Asheville? It is All Hallows Eve.
Hey, hold up a sec. I know you want to spend Halloween with your friends and all, but I just don't want these late-night trick-or-treaters pestering your mom all night long.
Can we just leave the porch lights off?
Come on, you know they're still going to ring the doorbell.
Receiving multiple reports about strange events transpiring this Hallows Eve.
Go.
Guys, what are we doing? I thought we were going to be partying all night.
Not without that bag.
You have no idea what kind of a mess you made tonight. Bring back the sack and maybe we can stop whatever's gonna happen.
Is that blood?
While trying to enjoy a peaceful Halloween with his mother, Tim is paid a visit by his rambunctious, up-for-anything friends. After reluctantly letting them inside the house, he becomes intertwined with the circumstances of their Halloween prankings. This is written, directed, and starring Matt Sampere, as I said, and it has Alan Maxson as the creature Ishi and many others. I'm not going to dive too much into it right now. I'll dive into it after the interview, but this hits Screambox on September 10th. Go check it out. If you want a good, I'm just going to say this, if you want a good horror movie that really gives you that feeling of fall, that really gets you in the mood, this is for you. But I'm going to give my thoughts on the film after we listen to my chat with Matt. So let's dive into that, and I will talk to you on the other side. My guest today has worked on many projects, from short films to music videos and much more. His feature film debut, Creeping Death, lands on Screambox September 10th. I want to welcome in Matt Sampere. How you doing today, Matt?
Dude, I'm doing fantastic. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Now, Creeping Death, it was a short film in 2021, and now you've expanded it out to a feature film. How has that kind of gone along for you?
And this was a 7-year-long process. I originally, I always wanted to do film, and I made a couple music videos and thought, you know what, seems logical. Let's do a feature next. And I was shooting music videos on an iPhone, and they were doing pretty well. And so I was like, let's try feature with an iPhone. We didn't have a crew. We didn't have a team. I just figured we could figure it out, me and a couple friends, and quickly realized I had no idea what I was doing. So I got into film school, and I was using the equipment on weekends and trying to shoot the thing for real with a lot of my classmates. Like I said, we were taking out gear from the school, and we were getting our hands on real industry equipment I'd never been able to use before. And we really tried shooting this thing for real, and we never finished it because, one, again, still had no idea what I was doing. And two, we were shooting outside. It's a fall movie, so we were trying to capture the fall atmosphere and shoot in October. And we started making our shoot dates. We started going into November, but we were getting lucky. We had 2 more days left before we finished shooting, and the snow came down. And I was never able to finish it. And looking back at that footage, I'm glad I never finished it. And so, after that, I walked away from the project, moved out to LA. I started getting real world experience in the industry and started, making short films. And then I was telling people about the idea for Creeping Death. And everyone's like, you need to make this movie. And so I was like, okay, maybe I should finish what I started with this. I took a couple years off, and then I was like, let's do the short film first. Let me get something in the can first with this creature, because this will be the third attempt. And then if this does well, let's do it for real and try and do a full feature. So it's been 7 years of trial and error. Finally, the short film came out a couple years ago, and then trying to get this feature done.
How did you, the idea for this Ichi creature film, how did you come up with this idea?
So I always knew in my first movie, like, I'm a huge Halloween fan, not just of the franchise, but of the holiday, of the season. And I knew I always wanted to make Halloween themed movies. And so one day I was just curious, Krampus had just come out around this time that I came up with this idea. And, I was just looking into folklore of the holiday. Where did some of these traditions come from? And then I read something about the lore of trick-or-treating coming from the Celtic lore of the Ishi. And so I started researching that, about how these creatures would walk, or, these spirits would walk our dimension on Halloween night in exchange for food and clothing and stuff like that. And if they left something, then they would leave, give a blessing to like the towns and hope that they'd have a bountiful harvest for next year. And so then I kind of just took that and I was like, what would that look like as a horror movie? I'm like, what if these people weren't giving anything out? What if, over time, people stopped believing in this thing? How would these creatures survive? How would these spirits survive? And I'm like, oh, what if they just started taking people from their houses? Nothing was left out. And then I just started like getting my own kind of twisted idea based on, this lore, and just kind of craziness kind of evolved from there.
Obviously, you mentioned challenges just getting this made with, originally shooting in the fall, and then it snowed, and then, many years later. Now, once you finally got some real world experience, you finally all right, finally I'm getting to make this how I want to. What kind of challenges did you have on this time around?
How much time do we have? There are, there were so many, even now to this day, there's still challenges. Every step of the way, there's nothing goes, no matter how much you prepare, there's always going to be other things to worry about. Starting at the very beginning, we had finding the funding for this. We did the Indiegogo to raise a lot of this, and that was successful. I didn't think we were going to make $500, and we were able to make our budget to shoot this thing. But then, you hit the ground running. We realized we lost some of the gear that not lost, but we were promised some gear that we were going to be using to shoot. And we had it all lined up because we shot it in New York, in my hometown. But I was I'm still out here in LA. Everything was lined up when I was going back to New York to shoot. And I landed, then I found out all the gear I thought we didn't have access to anymore. And so now a good amount of the budget that I was using for other things went to, oh my God, we need to just rent this, or just screw it. Let's just buy this dolly or whatever, just so we have it for future things. And so many issues, challenges that, came up, and, you learn from that and learn how you can avoid those in the future. And it's like, you don't know what you don't know until you know. I think that's the saying.
Shooting fall in LA can't really happen because you don't have the seasons. No.
We did shoot the opening scene out here in LA, actually.
Okay.
But, we kept it close to the house and just decorated. So I'm like, all right, it plays kind of. But yeah, no, we can't. You don't get that fall feel here. That's the one part of, I like living in LA, but I miss the seasons.
Now, on this, it's very practical driven, like practical work, practical kills. Can you speak to kind of like how you came about some of those? Because some of these kills are pretty darn good. When I was watching, I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome.
Thank you. When I wrote the script and I was showing it around everybody, like, the script was so much more brutal than what we were able to pull off. And it was like, but I wanted to write something that I haven't seen in a way, and write something that felt kind of appropriate for the characters. And so, a lot of people have been saying they wish a certain character would just shut up. So we stuck some fingers through his mouth, stuff like that. And so I was just like thinking about like, what would be cool to see? What haven't we really seen before? And I just, Terrifier has always been one of my favorite films, and they really upped the bar with like what a horror movie can do.
Yeah, they do.
And, and with the Saw movies and everything like that, it's like every new movie, they're just getting crazier and crazier. So I'm like, what can we do that's going to make people interested, show them something new, but also something we can do within budget?
The Ishi character itself, Alan Maxon played him, who he's played many creatures through films, and he did the motion capture for King Ghidorah in King of the Monsters. How was it getting him, like someone who's been very experienced in doing creatures, to play your creature?
Yeah, it's funny. So I met him maybe a month into moving to LA. I ended up on a project and he was playing another monster. And I always said, like, oh yeah, if I ever do a feature, it'd be cool to have him. And then he was doing an Indiegogo for his film at the time, Alien Planet, and him and I have kind of been messaging back and forth. And I was like, hey man, I'm actually about to get ready to do an Indiegogo for this project. I'd love your advice. By the way, I've got a monster part if you want to do that. And, you know, him and I already kind of had a little bit of a friendship going on before that. And he was like, dude, immediately, like, yes, I want to do this. He read the script, you know, the night I sent it to him, called me the following morning. He's like, I'm in. This is awesome. Let's go. And so once I knew we had him, I was like, okay, we've got our monster.
And how did you come up with the design of the monster itself?
So that, you know, that goes back to 7 years ago when we were trying. I knew I wanted something that kind of resembled Halloween, had a little bit of a jack-o'-lantern. I wanted to see the glowing eyes. The glowing eyes are scary. I wanted it to be able to stand on a shelf next to Freddy, Jason, Michael, Art the Clown. I'm like, what's something that looks different? And so I had the idea for the glowing eyes, and a buddy of mine back in New York, I asked him, I'm like, hey, how can we come up with this character? What do you think it should look like? And we started talking about ideas, and he's like, hey, I've got him. He makes Michael Myers masks, my friend.
Okay.
And so he's like, hey, I've got this like extra pull or whatever. Let's just mess with this because we have it handy and see what we can come up with. I'm like, cool, let's do triangular eyes, do the mouth like this, maybe give it hair like that. And so we just kind of kept tweaking different looks to it. Like we have so many other masks similar, but that we just tried to find what the look was. And in the short film, I don't know if you saw the short, we did, that is a Michael Myers mask that we completely redesigned to make our own. And then when it came time to doing the feature, I was like, I don't want to use a Michael Myers mask anymore. I want to make our own. And so I reached out to Monster Mark Kosubuki. I said, look, here's all the designs we have. Here's the sketches we have. Here's what we want it to look like. Here's what we did. How do we make this scarier? How do we make this look the same, but like make it our own? And so then he designed this guy.
This movie has that very, like, as I watched it, it gave me that feeling of fall. I know I live in Ohio, so we're starting to get the season a little bit, but it gave me that feel of, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready for October. A fall set, you know, like horror movie. Were there any influences for you as you were kind of, you know, you love horror movies, you love that. Like, what influences did you have throughout
every single Halloween film out there? You know, all the Halloween films. Obviously, we have a little bit of a homage to Halloween 4 in the beginning. You know, Pumpkinhead, Satan's Little Helper is another one I love. Night of the Demons, all those movies, Trick or Treat for sure. All those movies, I wanted to find a way to kind of like pay tribute to all of those and like use some of like those elements and like how can we make this feel like a love letter to all of those films and also kind of make it feel a little bit like a throwback film in a way too.
Will we see more Ishii in the future?
I would love that. If this one, if people want it, I have ideas and I know where I'd love to go with it. You know, we kind of set up at the end, like, you know, we set up that there are more out there. And if you've seen the short film, then, you know, that's the case. So yeah, I would love to totally do another one. It's just up to, will people, you know, if people resonate with this first one, I'd love to keep going with this.
September 10th, get on Screambox and watch Creeping Death. Will there be in the future any like a physical release for it or anything like that? Hopefully,
we are in talks. I mean, I have that's definitely something I plan on doing. Part of our Indiegogo was that we are going to be doing a physical release, so I am definitely going to make that happen. It's just a matter of when. We're hoping before the fall, but I also want to put together a really jam-packed Blu-ray filled with bonus features and everything. I have, like I said, I still have the iPhone footage. I have the footage from 5 years ago that never came out. And I think it would be cool, at least for me. You know, I like watching the bonus features on Blu-ray, seeing where movies, you know, how movies got to where they are now. And I would just like to put something that shows, here's how we started with nothing, and here's where we got with a little bit of something.
Here's what we got to that you're watching right now.
Right, exactly, yeah. So we just have so much content that we haven't released or done anything with them, like now I think would be the time to start prepping that and putting it out for something. So definitely, that will definitely be happening. I will be fighting for that because I want it on my shelf too.
As we kind of start to wrap up, are there any horror movies that you love, or are there any of those horror movies out there that you're like, maybe you haven't seen this that people should check out? I know you have your Halloweens, The Thing, Night of the Living Dead, like Omen. People will say all the classics. Is there any that maybe might not be a classic?
I don't know. I consider it a classic. I don't know if others do, but Pumpkinhead, man.
Oh, yeah.
Favorite movie. This guy right there, like, honestly, that movie, that was a huge influence for
Lance
me. Lance
Hendrickson, Stan Winston. Come on.
Yeah, I've got a Pumpkinhead on my arm. I tried so hard in the movie. I'm like, all right, we got to cover him up. Can't let Pumpkinhead pop up. But that movie, I mean, the atmosphere, the creature design, everything, it was made for such a perfect movie. And even though it wasn't a Halloween movie, it feels like a fall movie.
Oh, it totally does.
I loved everything about that movie ever since I was a kid. And not a lot of people know about it. I think now it's starting to get more appreciation. But when I grew up and was watching these movies and, everyone was talking about Friday the 13th, Halloween, Creature of the Black Lagoon, no one knew what Pumpkinhead was. Everyone thought I was crazy. I think everyone needs to see that. If you're even remotely a monster fan or horror movie fan, that's an essential film, especially come the fall season.
I will wholeheartedly agree with you. Check out Pumpkinhead after you watch Creeping Death.
Absolutely. Yes. That would be a good double feature. I should do that.
There you go. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. And I wish you all the best with this movie. And hopefully we'll get to see more in the future.
Thank you so much. I absolutely hope so.
Again, I want to thank Matt for taking time out of his day to chat with me. It was a blast talking to him. Let me tell you, I told you before we jumped in the interview, but this movie will get you in that fall feeling. Overall, Creeping Death, I did have a good time. Like, it was a film that really kind of started out of the gates a little slow. It was a little rough around the edges to start. But once we kind of really got into it, once the Ishi creature character came to life and really started wreaking havoc, I really got hooked in. Like I said, it gives me that feel of fall. I love a good Halloween set film that just puts me in the mood. This was absolutely that type of movie that really just put me in that mood. I enjoyed it. There was some good practical kills in this movie with the creature. I didn't think they'd go as far as they would. Some of them, I'm like, oh, it kind of cuts away a little bit, but obviously, more likely than not, especially with an indie film, it usually depends on budget. But this film, like the description said, Tim's friends are kind of, up for anything. They're little pranksters, and they end up stealing this sack that this older man leaves on his porch, kind of a offering for this Ishi character who is a Celtic spirit that walks during Halloween night. And because of that, they unleash him. And it kind of turns into almost a slasher. The spirit is kind of like picking them off one by one, just wreaking havoc. I love the design of the Ishi creature. I thought the creature looked very cool. The kills, I thought, were very good. There were a few that were really creative that I was like, ooh, I love this one. And I love the setting. The setting of this movie in Halloween, that fall feeling, living here in Ohio. We get all those seasons right now. The leaves are starting to change. The weather the last couple weeks has given us a couple false fall days where it's nice and cool. And watching a movie like this when that weather is that way just sets me in the mood. And I just had a good time and would recommend checking out Creeping Death on Screambox. Like I said, it comes out September 10th. I wish Matt and his team all the best of luck with this movie. I hope it does well for him. So it kind of sets up for the possibility of sequels, and it would be cool to see a Creeping Death 2, kind of see where the story goes or what this creature's up to. I had a fun Halloween-filled fall time with Creeping Death. All right, well, that will do it for another chapter of Old Man Brad. Not going to have anything else for you to check out this week. go check out Creeping Death on Screambox. I am getting ready for Horror Hound Week. I will have an episode covering Horror Hound here either next week or after, and then I will also have a whole bunch of Fantastic Fest coverage coming your way right after that. So it's going to be a lot of fun times over here at Old Man Brad. Just make sure you subscribe to the show and you won't miss those. As I said in the beginning, if you're in Cincinnati, come out to Horror Hound. Also, I host Frightful Fridays on the third Friday of the month. I host a horror screening, and our screening for September is The Final Girls from 2015. Make sure you come out for that. Also, go to the Esquire on September 13th because they're showing Friday the 13th. Couple great weeks over at the Esquire. But I will be back soon with a brand new chapter. Have a lot of stuff in the works. Just snuggle up in that blanket, turn off the lights, because it's okay to be scared. We'll talk to you later, everybody.